Good afternoon, New York. Good morning, Los Angeles, and everyone in between. Good afternoon, Washington, D.C. I am Dmitri Glinski. Happy first day of spring after a pretty cold and brutal winter, at least here in the Northeast, which tells us that not everything is doom and gloom, even in our current lives and situation in our country and elsewhere. So I'm delighted to welcome our very distinguished, I would say, illustrious speakers and audience on behalf of the American Russian Speaking Association for Civil and Human Rights, as well as on behalf of our new friends and partners, Liberty Forward, which is a brand new NGO of young and energetic folks that has put this program for us together. And our co-chair today, Denis Vavaev, will introduce them shortly. The Russian speaking in our name historically refer to the fact that we never intended to be a Russian-only community organization, although for full disclosure, a number of us, including myself, are immigrants from Russia. But we are very proud of the fact that we have held an open tent for natives of other countries of the region. And we have been about the only diaspora organization working on bringing them together in a dialogue on our shared concerns. This is our second decade in existence. And now I want to emphasize that a number of us are not just Russian speakers, but also Ukrainian speakers, Armenian speakers, and others among those who volunteer and participate in our events. So our conversation today is part of our Roundtable program, which we have been running on Zoom for over 4 years. And in these years, we have been privileged to have speakers from the leadership of the Memorial Society, from Kharkiv Human Rights Protection Group in Ukraine, and prominent scholars from America and Europe, as well as speakers from the State Department under the previous administration. Some of our roundtables were also part of the civil society programming around the Summits for Democracy in the recent years. Our association's work overall is about to mark 13 years, exactly 3 days from now. On the 4th of March, 2012, we were founded right after a protest rally in front of the Russian consulate here in New York against human rights violations in Russia at the time of Vladimir Putin's expected return to the presidency. So given the short expectancy of community-based initiatives in general in our diaspora, we are now among the oldest. And this is in spite of the fact that most of our work for most of these years has been virtually entirely volunteer-based, which is not quite a choice, but is the price that we are willing to pay for our independence from current, past oligarchs and various other power holders, and for saying what we think about what is going on in our native as well as in our new adopted country. We have here a few of our members of our leadership, which I want to acknowledge today. I'm very glad that we have here our co-chair of the board and co-founder, Tatiana Gabriichuk, the formerly director of the Sakharov program at Harvard. We also have here our vice chair of the board, Igor Kokarev, who is originally from Odessa and was also an elected official in Moscow back in the 90s. Igor is here with us. He's joining us from LA. Tatiana is joining us from Boston. And we also have another board member, Dmitri, who is here in New York and is also with us here. Okay, this is the event that we held 10 years ago in front of the Russian mission to the UN in New York City with one of our co-founders, Andrei Grigorienko, who is on this picture. I also want to acknowledge that today in Berlin, a lot of Russians who are opposed to this war are rallying in protest against it, and I want to express our solidarity with them. Thanks to our friends from Liberty Forward today, we will explore another topic that affects quite a lot of people, especially young folks from our countries of our region. We'll do this with participation of our Ukrainian and Belarusian voices. And that also expands our 10-year-old Ukrainian-Russian dialogue that we have been conducting in the diaspora. Denis will talk more about Liberty Forward. It was set up by Fulbright scholars from Russia who found themselves in a predicament here in the US since last March when the Kremlin branded their sponsor, the Institute for International Education, as an undesirable organization, which potentially criminalizes their status back home. And I have personally been moved by their story, especially since I myself came to the US back in the previous century on a J1 visa that some of them have, and I know a little bit what it entails, even though it was a very different time and situation. Now, of course, since last spring, there have been a lot of things that have been happening since we started plotting this event, and some of them are quite seismic changes in the landscape that we are seeing in front of us. And to summarize them in my own way, and again, everyone here is free to dispute that, but I think that what we are witnessing can be defined as a Putinization of our federal government. And we have, first time ever, we would never think that we have a government that admires, defends, and emulates at least its president. The tyrants and war criminals, especially the one from whom so many of us left our native country. Some of the most unbelievable predictions of some of American classics are in danger of materializing. Sometimes I think that we are about to live under the Iron Heel that was described by Jack London in his classical novel. And those things that Sinclair Lewis hoped could not happen in America are actually happening today. And of course, many of those appeasers that were active, maybe not so visibly in the past years, they are now having their day. But this is not our today's central topic. However, we need to, as we speak about the situation of the students in the US from our part of the world, I think it's important that, of course, their status and their future, their ability to travel and to work freely is hugely important. And it's also part of a bigger story, because international education is about intellectual freedom and about universal knowledge. And this is something that is threatened today by the politics of ultranationalism, ignorance, and intimidation that we are witnessing both in Europe and in America. So now I would like to pass the floor to Denis.
I will briefly introduce ourselves, and I will introduce our main guests who will tell their stories. My name is Denis, as Dmitri said. Denis is okay as well. And I represent organization Liberty Forward. We were created to support, firstly, displaced Russian students through human rights and educational projects, but now we have some united projects with Belarusians and Ukrainians. Liberty Forward brings together participants of United States exchange programs and their dependents like me. And these exchange programs were announced undesirable in Russia. And most of members of our organizations are Fulbrighters, current Fulbrighters or Fulbrighters alumni. When we arrived in the United States, I think we never imagined that at some point we would have to create an organization and start hosting public events like these, because most of us came here to either to get master's degree or to pursue an academic career. But about a year ago, the head of Russian intelligence, Mr. Sergei Naryshkin, decided that America was using its exchange programs to train agents and spies to destabilize political situation in Russia. And I think I would like to say that the idea of training people to destabilize something in Russia doesn't sound bad to me. But unfortunately, we did not receive any training, and going back to Russia with such kind of accusation is definitely not the smartest idea. And since then, we are fighting for our future, for our rights, and for continuation of our careers in the United States. And we are facing a lot of bureaucratic obstacles. And I think our Russian participants, Tatiana and Violetta, will tell you more about this. And despite complicated relations between Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians, and even their diasporas, we organized this common event together with our Belarusian and Ukrainian colleagues. I want to sincerely thank Liubov that she joined us today. Liubov is currently working on her Ph.D. degree in nanotechnology, and her hometown in Ukraine was occupied and fully destroyed by the Russian army, and I think will of Putin to make Russia great again. And Liubov came to United States through United for Ukraine program, and now her entire academic career depends on when Trump decides that it's time for Ukrainians to go back home. Liubov today will be joined by her laboratory supervisor, Professor Alexander Kabanov. I do think that many people here knows him.
I'm like to share today with you a little bit of my story, and I'll start with my professional journey. I have been studying pharmacy in graduate school in Kharkiv, Ukraine since 2019. However, my life and research were dramatically interrupted by the full-scale war in Ukraine. My hometown, Bakhmut, was completely destroyed, along with all my family's property and heritage. Despite this devastation, the knowledge I inherit from my family drives me to continue my challenging journey into the depths of pharmaceutical science. In March 2022, after vacating with my 6-year-old son to Poland, I began searching for a scientific program in a safer place than war striking Ukraine. My goals were twofold. The first, it was for sure try to help as much as I can to ensure my child's safety, and the second, to find well-equipped research environment with the necessary laboratory infrastructure and professional support. Fortunately, Dr. Kavanagh, a distinguished professor at the University of North Carolina, read my application and responded to me. Together, we worked on securing G1 visa so that I could come to US as a visiting scholar. However, in August 2022, at the US Embassy in Munich, my visa application was denied because I couldn't demonstrate my ability to return home. It doesn't exist anymore. As a result, all non-immigrant visa options became unavailable to me. At that time, thankfully, the United for Ukraine, U4U program applied to my case, allowing me and my son legally come to US and continue my studies at the prestigious University of North Carolina, Schulman School of Pharmacy. I have been deeply impressed by the high level and quality of pharmaceutical research in the US, and I'm working diligently to meet the rigorous standards of impactful research. My PhD program expected to be completed after fall 2027. However, my current U4U referral status is set to expire in fall 2026. Unfortunately, there is no way for me to extend U4U as it has been frozen by the current president administration. And another part of this story that the war in Ukraine is ongoing with no political solution currently in place for a long-term ceasefire. Every day Russia attacks countries to damage universities as well as medical and pharmaceutical infrastructure without state support. Maintaining the numbers of science-backed projects in war-torn Ukraine has become increasingly difficult, and if I were forced to return to my home country due to the lack of the legal way to stay in the US, Ukrainian law would require that as an unemployment pharmacist in Ukraine, even though I have never received any military training. It is my story. I'm glad that today I can share it with you.
Anastasia is from Belarus, and her story is somewhat similar to the Russian Fulbright story, but with significant differences. Anastasia came to the United States as a Fulbrighter as well. Now her entire career and future depends on the possibility to renew her Belarusian passport, because Lukashenko has banned the opportunity to renew passports abroad, and returning to Belarus would mean near certain political prosecution to her. I give the floor to Anastasia Leshchyk.
First of all, thank you for organizing this event. Thank you, Denis, Dmitri, and everyone who was involved. Thank you for inviting me today. So my name is Anastasia. I'm a former Fulbright student from Belarus. I came to the United States in 2017 for my master's program. I successfully completed it and I stayed for Ph.D. And right now I'm in my final semester in bioinformatics program at Boston University. I'm doing research in healthy aging and longevity, and I would love to continue doing research in US in aging. I'm very excited about this field. And I accepted the job offer from a local medical center. It's a research position very recently. However, I'm unable to graduate and begin my job because of challenges with my immigration status. So I'm on a F1 visa, and I applied for the 2-year home residence requirement waiver back in December 2023. But there has been no progress in my case, and it's been around 15 months. Without this waiver, I cannot transition to H-1B visa, and which is offered by my employer. I could apply for OPT after graduation. However, because of my national interest waiver, I-140 is already approved. There is a small chance that OPT may be denied. And at this time, I'm also working on EB-1A case, which is a much faster track to green card. However, without a waiver, I cannot apply for adjustment of status, so I need a waiver decision as soon as possible. Another challenge that I'm facing is my expiring Belarusian passport that's set to expire in June this year. I'm unable to renew it outside of Belarus. This restriction was imposed by Belarusian government last year. So I can renew it, and I can't go back to Belarus to renew it because of my political persecution there. Without a valid passport, maintaining legal status, and also switching to H-1B status, renewing my local Massachusetts ID becomes nearly impossible. So all of this affects my ability to work in the United States and to travel, even for professional purposes, like presenting my research at the conferences. So today I'm looking forward to possible solutions. I again appreciate that you invited me to speak today. Thank you everyone for your time.
Mr. Gordon Humphrey, a person with a huge political background who served 2 terms as a federal senator from New Hampshire state since 1979 till 1990. Then he was a candidate to the position of governor of New Hampshire. So I think he is a very important guest here.
Всем привет. Для меня большая честь участвовать с вами. К сожалению, я говорю по-русски плохо. Немножечко. Поэтому я говорю по-английски. Hi, everybody. I'm entirely in sympathy with you. Anastasia's case is just so typical in its senselessness. The U.S. government is making a terrible mistake from both the humanitarian and the strategic point of view in ignoring the crisis which Anastasia and her colleagues face. And not only the Fulbrighters, present and past, but all of the Russian emigres in the U.S. They're our allies, they're our friends. We ought to enable them to fully participate in our economy and to continue their lives. And more than that, we should attract more such immigrants from Ukraine and from Russia and Belarus. So that's where I'm coming from. Well, I want to ask, have you been in contact with either of the 2 senators from Massachusetts or the member of the House of Representatives who represents your district? And what has been the response?
Yeah, so me and my scientific advisor at Boston University, we contacted. We have not received any replied ever since.
When was that?
It was 2 months ago.
They completely ignore requests from non-US citizens, and it makes sense because they want to be helpful to the citizens first.
Well, it doesn't make sense. There are hundreds of thousands of Russian-speaking persons in the United States, a great many in Massachusetts and New York and California and Florida, as you know. We need to unify the Russian-speaking community across the nation.
I will give a floor to our Russian participants, Tatiana and Violetta. So Tatiana will tell her individual story. Violetta will share the actions which was already done.
Thank you, everyone who are gathered today to hear our unfortunately heartbreaking stories. And I really hope that it will be a better reason to gather together. But we have what we have. So my name is Tatiana Gabriichuk, and I'm the last Russian Fulbrighter at Indiana University of Bloomington. There is no Russian Fulbrighters left there. So I'm on my last semester of Master of Public Affairs at O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs there, and I landed in the US in August 2023. My specialization there is the resilience of the local government services, be it 9/11 service or fire departments and other public services there. And also I'm concentrating in the recovery of the war-torn urban spaces. And today I'm here not just a student, but someone who is going through the Kafkian bureaucracy, if I may say. So my academic path back in Russia could perfectly illustrate the way how the Russian authoritarian government treats those who are pursuing career in public affairs. So as for my undergrad, my status defense happened without my academic advisor because he was fired the same morning because of his political attitudes. Even though he is one of the best researchers in the political network analysis. Then my first master degree was in political analysis and public policy at Higher School of Economics, and it got shut down. And especially my concentration, which was human rights and democratic governance, was shut down because of the political reasons in April 2022. As for my second master's, which was energy relations in Eurasia at European University in St. Petersburg, it also stopped working because the whole team had to be evacuated to Armenia in my last semester of studying there, since most of the students were from the United States and Western Europe. And fortunately, I did graduate, but there is no program like that anymore at European University at St. Petersburg. So as for my research and extracurricular affiliations, I'm affiliate of 5 so-called unwanted organizations. You might know the foreign agent law, but this is a higher level felony, which makes us up to 6 years each in prison. So you can calculate that I might serve my little prison time as long as Lukashenko is in power in my husband's country. So the Englishers, my first unwanted organization, helped me to start speaking English 12 years ago back in Cambridge, United Kingdom. Oxford Russia Fund was a life-changing experience which introduced me the practical approach in sustainable and resilient local governance through the research project in the town of Dobrograd in Vladimirska Oblast. They also helped me to obtain recommendation letters to the Institute of International Education, which helped me to be selected as a Fulbrighter, which made my third unwanted organization. The full-scale invasion made me leave the country of my citizenship on the February 24th, 2022, and joined the Russian Against War in Antalya, which is the anti-war pro-Ukrainian community in Turkey, which helped the displaced Ukrainian families with kids to reside there. And I also met my Belarusian husband, who literally escaped the Belarusian prison and landed in Turkey, and now he's with me in Bloomington as my G2 dependent. My fifth unwanted organization is the Culture Vistas, who operates the Edmund Muskie Fellowship I was granted on January this year, but it got frozen, so I have another felony back home and no source there. So for many of us, the Fulbright program was meant to be a bridge, an opportunity to build a mutual understanding between nations, to bring back knowledge, and to foster global collaboration. But for Russian Fulbrighters, that bridge was burned behind us overnight. On March 18th, 2024, almost 1 year ago, the Russian government declared the Fulbright program as unwanted organization and issuing the note making our participation a felony punishable by up to 6 years in prison. This was not just a bureaucratic decision, it was a statement that we, as scholars, as researchers, as individuals seeking education within the exchange program existing since the Cold War, are considered criminals in our own country. How do you navigate a system that was never designed for people in our situation? And for those of us already abroad, the consequences were immediate and severe. Going home was no longer an option, at least for me, since my family members became targets of intimidation and get questions by the security forces at their works. Our legal status in the US became precarious, and emotionally, we were left stranded, isolated between two systems that weren't built to handle cases like ours. There are questions my fellow students and I have to face, not as hypotheticals, but as urgent, life-defining challenges. And for students with families, the situation is even worse. My spouse, for example, as I already mentioned, is from Belarus. He's Belarusian citizen on J2 Russian Fulbright visa. That adds another layer of legal limbo with no clear path forward for mixed nationality families caught in this web of broken policies. That is why we are here today, to make sure that Fulbright scholars are not forgotten in these shifting tides of diplomacy. So as for my story, after consulting with my Fulbright advisors, I was encouraged to pursue first the post-degree academic training, which would allow me to stay in the US until August 2026 and simultaneously apply for the waiver to get rid of the 2 years home residency rule. So it will help me at least to save some time and to navigate all the hurdles, and then I can transit to another immigrant visa. But I'm facing another unprecedented challenges. The first is that I was accepted to the mutual US-German capstone project, and I was expected to go to Germany as a part of my capstone project. But I was strongly advised by the Fulbright advisor not to leave the US until I graduate. Moreover, I know in other cases when my other colleagues were also applying for their travel abroad in their spring break, and they were literally called by the Fulbright advisors on phone telling, no way you will be leaving the United States because you won't be allowed to enter back. You're really risking this, so please do not leave the country. And it really affected my German capstone participation because I won't be there. I won't be presenting my results of the work, and it is indeed psychologically struggling. And another thing I would like to say, unfortunately, that my Fulbright stipend got also frozen. Me and hundreds of my colleagues from more than 100 countries are not able to pay the rent and are on the risk of the eviction. We were promised to have at least 1/4 from our stipend, but we still have nothing. And our friends and family back in Russia can't send us money since our banking system is under sanctions. And that's all me and my colleagues have to navigate right now. So it is not about my future in the US. It is also about the way how I'll be seeing my family anymore. Because if I apply for political asylum, there is a big chance I won't be seeing my family in years. And considering that I also got a Belarusian husband, it also got a challenge. So unfortunately, I'm in this bureaucratic limbo. And thank you so much for listening to my story.
There is so many layers to this limbo. That is why we chose Tatiana to present her story, because she might be setting the record on the number of undesirable organizations she's affiliated with. Yeah, so I wanted to ask one quick thing to Tatiana before I share Liberty Forward's efforts to help people like her. So you mentioned that you won't be able to apply for asylum because of your Belarusian husband. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because people might not be aware of the challenges that um, being married to a Belarusian husband can have.
Yeah, so the thing is, the first, my Belarusian husband has also had his passport to expire relatively soon. And the second issue is that he was staying in Turkey, he was living in Poland for a while, so he got some residency document, which makes really challenging for us to apply for political asylum because we will be easily questioned of why you won't just go to other countries because you were already staying there. But the thing is, with what happening there with that policies of freezing the money and everything, we can't just save any money to move to another place as for now. And still, we will be applying for political asylum just for sake of not being accepted on political asylum, which is like just waste of the time. So we're in that limbo, unfortunately.
Yeah, so Tanya's story is just another example of I would say ignorance that Institute of International Education has imposed on us since the designation of Institute of International Education and other international organizations that are promoting cultural and educational exchange to the United States from Russia. So when this all happened, and Denis has already touched base a little bit on the timeline, it happened in March last year. And so we started asking Fulbright, our advisors, other people who are related to Fulbright, what we can do in such situation. And the only thing they said is that you don't have to stay in the United States. But the thing is that if we don't go back to Russia for 2 years, we don't fulfill this 2-year home residency requirement that we signed the documents for when we were offered terms of agreement to go to the United States. So it will be violating the contract that we signed. So they told us that they can buy us a ticket to any other country. They said there are 200 countries in the world, and we can choose any one of them to go and be poor and miserable in any one of them. So that was funny. And at the time, we were trying to find a solution for us. And that's when I published my piece in Washington Post in April. And that is how media coverage happened for us. And we had articles published in different media sources, both in English and Russian. And it was interesting to see how audience reacted to our issues because there were definitely people who were sympathetic to us, like Doc, and who helped us tremendously with helping to reduce processing times. But the main issue is not the waiver. The main issue is that how ridiculous the situation sounds out of context because you come to the United States to promote education and cultural exchange, to share your values and to gain some American values and to talk to people, to gain education, to go back to your home country, to apply your experiences. And first of all, you cannot do that because you're going to be imprisoned if you go back. You cannot stay in this country to continue your education or work or any professional experience because of this 2-year home residency requirement. You cannot go to any third country because with the stipends they're paying that are just increased this year, probably because they don't have to waste their funding for Russian Fulbrighters anymore. You cannot save any money to go to any other country. And that has all happened not because I agreed to this rule, not because any of the Fulbrighters agreed to this situation. It's because it just happened. And I don't know why we expected some help from Institute of International Education at the time, but we asked them for many different resources. For example, at the time, and it just recently happened that UCAS reduced or waived the fee to apply for the waiver because it used to be around 1,100 to apply. And Tanya, what is your stipend in Indiana?
So my stipend is 1,300. It was $1,320 per month, but now I'm without any sources. So my savings is just what I had from my plasma donation, and I'm still like a little bit of dollars, but I'm figuring this out. But as for other colleagues, they also experiencing really low stipends, and one of the participants already mentioned in the chat that for the postdegree academic training there is new requirements which were introduced really recently, which requires us to have to gain at the work twice as much as we used to have in our stipend. Like for Indiana, I have to earn at least $18 per hour in my internship to be allowed to work. And that's quite a common amount of hourly wage, let's say in DC, in New York. So I won't be able to work in other places. And it will be really hard for me to find any place in Indiana as well. I used to live on that money. It was pretty fine, but new compliance, new requirements, asking for something really unreal. Sorry for saying like that, but that's our life, unfortunately.
Yes, so I asked her that because with waiver fee that was still in place before early January this year, all the students applying for the 2-year home residency requirement that Fulbright said cannot help us with, we had to pay around $1,300 to both entities, which is USCIS and Department of State, for our case to be processed. And that is the amount students get per month. And for those who have dependents, and Tanya is the example of that, it's even harder for them to survive from a stipend like that. So with all that said, we didn't just sit with our hands closed, right? So we tried to do something. And with the help of our friends and with other advocacy efforts and people who wanted us to be heard, we helped ourselves, but the issue is still there. There are other international students program, like for example, we have students representing Year of Exchange program that was in place, and if Fulbright is only 30 to 70 people a year, I would say, across the different programs, Year program has over 100 participants every year, and these are students who go to study to the US on an exchange for a year in the bachelor program. So they are much younger than Fulbright folks that might have some savings. So they don't have any support and any help. Their stipends are like $200, if I'm not mistaken, because they're also given a room on board. But that's not the point. The point is that there are still people who are waiting for the waivers since 2023. And those who couldn't apply because of the enormous amount of money that the waiver cost. We're helping them right now, but the issue is the duration of time that the cases are going to be processed. And with the year participants, they're administered by Eurasia Foundation, and the Eurasia Foundation is not even an undesirable organization, so they don't have. But their program was told to be canceled, and that the program is on the secret list of undesirable organization, but there is no. We tried to ask the Minister of Justice that administers all of that for the document for the year participants to attach to their cases that the organization has also been designated as undesirable, but they haven't responded to us. But there was an interesting investigation by the Insider I can attach here, but it's in Russian, that they're saying that there are multiple, over 50 international organizations that have been designated as undesirable, but they're not public. And so with all that being said, you can see how many layers of issues we've been dealing with. And we're just upset and surprised that Institute of International Education haven't helped us, and they were just trying to get rid of us and silence us. And the only thing they did is they deleted the list of Russian Fulbrighters from the website because that is how they care about our security. And when we asked if our data is somewhere, because there was a Russian Fulbright office that also got shut down in the summer 2023. We asked what they did with our data, and they're not allowed to contact us anymore. So, and the president of the Russian Fulbright office contacted one of my friends saying that we signed this to your home residency requirement, so we knew what it implies. But I personally signed it in 2021, even before the full-scale invasion, and that ruined all my plans to go back to Russia and safely continue my work. So I don't know what to say in closing. I think it's just we can see that the work is not finished. There are so many people affected by this issue, and at Liberty Forward, we're trying to help them to get their documents in order and apply for this to your home residency requirement. Thankfully, the fee right now is only $150, which is not difficult to collect, and we're helping folks and donating them and trying for the situation to be resolved in an individual level. But there is definitely another way for it to be done. But I personally, I study educational psychology, so I cannot really say what is the way, but maybe there is someone else in the audience who has ideas.
We had seen a lot of opinions, even from people from Russian community, that we're not in real danger in Russia, arguing that the inclusion of our organization to the list of so-called undesirable is just a checkpoint for some intelligence officer, and we are not Yashin, we are not Karamurza, we are not Kasparov, and nobody needs us. But I want to say why I have serious doubts that it's just a coincidence. I will briefly explain why I think so. I mentioned that the history started from the statement of head of Russian intelligence Naryshkin, who listed about 6 or 7 programs, including Fulbright, in his publication. But he did not mention first the Muskie grant, which is now undesirable in Russia. The Muskie, the organization which administers Muskie grant, appeared only later in the official documents to designate this organization undesirable. However, this organization, the name is Cultural Vistas, they even never had an office in Russia. At the same time, they work a lot with Fulbright alumni and provides grants for their post-degree academic training. So this specific combination of organizations definitely was not targeted randomly. And the connection between Muskie and Fulbright could be known only from inside of these programs. So let's not forget that Fulbright came to Soviet Union in mid-70s when the Cold War, during the height of Cold War. And it makes me hard to believe that its internal process were not monitored by both intelligence agencies from the both sides, I mean, by USSR and USA, and then by Russia and the USA. I will give a word to Alexander Kabanov.
Thank you very much for getting together. I really appreciate that you have this meeting and invited Liubov. I have perspective both, I would say, focused on Luba, who is very important to me and to my scientific program. Also through Luba, I have become very close to Ukrainian communities, so I can tell that her story is not unique. And as someone born in USSR, albeit I condemned the Russian government and the war, I have been quite knowledgeable of the processes ongoing both in Russia and in the former Soviet Union Russian-speaking community as former president and current CEO of Russian American Science Association. Well, let me try to tone down my emotions and just focus on several aspects. Well, first of all, over last few days, although that wasn't a big surprise, but still it's extremely painful to witness a dramatic instability and the change in US foreign policy and apparent alignment with essentially criminal dictatorship and a regime over the bleeding, fighting, smaller nation of Ukraine. And one thing which we understand right now, as we probably have understood from the previous term of President Donald Trump, is that they are, or his administrations, he himself, are extremely impulsive and irresponsible. And that worries by itself. So I guess there are no moral breaks in many things they can do, especially with respect to weak communities such as Russians and, of course, Ukrainians in the United States. I have two paramount concerns about Ukrainians who are here. First of all, as you heard, the only way to bring Luba after she was denied a J1 visa from University of North Carolina because she comes from the territory which was under Russian attack and currently doesn't exist as a living area, city of Bakhmut, Donbass overall, is that resulted, the only way to bring her here was United for Ukraine, which we have sponsored. There is a number of individuals at United for Ukraine. As Luba mentioned, it is frozen. Not only the program is frozen, but the transition to TPS, temporary protective status, application, which many of these individuals have applied for, is also kind of postponed and frozen. I do not know what the administration could do, but given the impulsive character of what they are doing, they can tomorrow just announce that everyone on this status need to go home. And here, as I said, Luba is not the only one person in this situation. In North Carolina, I know a number of individuals who are involved in different roles, academic roles, in the UNC Chapel Hill in Duke. They are in the same situation. Some are even in a worse situation than Luba because Luba's current reparole is valid till fall 2026. Some people might need, some people expire in March or in April, and it's unclear what these individuals could do because along with being illegally in the country once their parole is ended, then they don't have ability to work and get the permit to work, make money, contribute to U.S. economy, and study and do good for U.S. So aside from enormous humanitarian problem, and for these people specifically, and I have to note, there are not so many U4U Ukrainians here. It's about 200,000 right now, or less. There is a huge damage to U.S. economy. Well, let me go back to Luba's situation. Luba has come to me, to my lab. I have sponsored that. I invested in that. But the way I approached her application was based on the merit. So I figured out that an individual with her training could be a good student, a graduate student in our program and contribute to a number of projects in National Institute of Health. Luba has funded by the National Institute of Health, which are directed towards treatment of cancer. Liuba has been successful in this role, resulting in several technical advantages. Every student in our field is a custom-made specialist, expert, and we invest a lot of time, talent, and heart in their upbreeding. And Liuba is an example. She has recently made an important discovery, and we're going to file a patent on that, which is likely to be licensed to a company here in North Carolina and create additional impact on our economy and potentially create new workplace. So economic impact of these individuals who are working, willing to work, and came here under distressful, horrible conditions of forced immigration, essentially, or refugees, should not be discounted. And we need to speak to this administration and to our representative about that aspect, as well as about humanitarian aspect, which is obvious. The second thing, and once again, I said that Liuba's example is not unique. Just to give you another example, I was traveling a year ago in Houston, giving a talk, went to a university of Houston, and there was a graduate student in pharmacy, in pharmaceutical sciences, who was a graduate student of the same Kharkov Pharmaceutical University as Liuba, albeit they never met. But she came with her son or daughter, with her child, to a lab of a Russian-speaking chemistry professor who was trained in the same chemistry department as me. So this is a coincidence, just tells you that these situations are probably many across the nation. And so that is one point I want to make. The second point, which Liuba already touched upon, is that there are, among Ukrainians who are here and who may be at the threat of being deported back to I don't know where, there are people like Liuba, and quite a few, who came from the regions that are under Russian occupation and completely destroyed. So those Ukrainians, where will they be sent? We yesterday had a conversation with Liuba's mother as to whether she could be sent back to Russian territory, and that is not safe. I don't know what this administration would do, but that represents a tremendous problem of no less danger for those people than the danger for Fulbrighters. And I want to highlight that to the Fulbrighters. There is nowhere to go to these people. They can, of course, and in Ukraine, as you can imagine, there is no work for them. So this is both humanitarian and economic problem. Speaking about Russians, I deal a lot with Russian speaking community and with the most recent immigrants from Russia who left Russia for political and professional reasons. In the humanitarian and social sciences, it became totally impossible to do any independent research because of the ideological pressure within Russia against these things. I know a member of a Russian Academy of Sciences who opposed the war, like myself, and she's now a foreign agent under Russian new laws. She organized an institute which is called Unwelcome Organization, which is criminalizing what she is doing. And we have quite a few people like that who had to leave. Many of them left to Europe. And we have also technical specialists who are valuable, well-trained, and could have come to United States to contribute again to American economy. And here I am very disappointed with the Biden administration because I was encouraged initially, right after the beginning of the full-scale invasion. There was a claim by someone in Biden administration that was a science advisor that we essentially will take all the brains we can from Russia, so their loss is our gain. That never happened. And that is shameful. It's very difficult to obtain a visa to United States. It's almost impossible to bring specialists who we would like to bring, and that resonates, and that probably can be incorporated in some ways into Elon Musk's, into this theme, which was touched upon in relation to Elon Musk. As an example, what this administration, which I of course criticize, can do different and better than the new administration. I think the emphasis on the economic impact of the well-educated Ukrainians and those Ukrainians who continue their education here, as well as on well-educated professional Russians, is very, very important in any of our appeals to Congress representatives and in other way. And I encourage your organizations to do the same, and as well as you as individuals. Thank you.
Thank you for this remarkable, very moving presentations, both of you. And I won't dwell a lot, but just one thought comes to my mind, that given this horrific destruction that has been brought upon Ukraine, especially its eastern part, especially its formerly Russian-speaking, or maybe even in many ways presently Russian-speaking part, which is one of the vicious paradoxes of this war. It's very important that Ukraine be compensated, Ukrainian people be compensated by those responsible for this aggression, by the Russian military machine, by the perpetrators of these crimes. And I think the next step in some kind of a dialogue between the Ukrainian and the Russian diasporas should be about how Russian people, those who understand the depth of destruction and devastation, can campaign and work together with Ukrainians to make sure that once this war ends, Ukraine is made whole, and that the perpetrators pay for the crimes that they committed, and for rebuilding this great, wonderful country.
And I have a question to Professor Marcy Shaw. Hello, Marcy. Marcy is professor of history in Yale University and a big specialist in Eastern Europe and Marxism, as far as I know. But my question is about initiatives of Yale University. I know that there are a lot of initiatives in support of Eastern Europeans and Ukrainians especially. So my question is, if there were some stories like Liubov's story in Yale, and such problems were discussed and some maybe solutions were found.
Okay, I'm afraid I have nothing very practical to say. I'm in Toronto right now. I'm not in New Haven, but I was back in New Haven for a few days last week, where I met with Tanya. I met with some of my other advisees and friends who have these visa issues. I met with Russian, Belarusian, and Ukrainian friends and students. I don't see that there's any institutional solution. I see that people are getting little notes from the university saying, if you are detained by ICE, please call this number. We will try to help you. I see students who are high school students or are the children of people at the university being told by their teachers at the high school that if ICE comes, we will try to protect you, but please know we probably can't. I don't see that there's any large-scale institutional effort to protect people. But again, I have no actual expertise in law, in immigration law, in visa issues. The one thing I have been telling all my Ukrainian friends and colleagues again and again and again, and I realize I sound like a neurotic catastrophist, is that this administration absolutely cannot be trusted. And I know this sounds obvious, but I feel like, especially for people who come from, who are my generation and older, perhaps, who came from the former Soviet Union, like Alexander Vindman, the image of America as, despite all its imperfections, the land of the free and the home of the brave, and in the end, America is still America, and in the end, there's still some fundamental commitment to freedom, and in the end, this is still the safest place to be. It is very, very hard to let go of that. It's hard for us to let go of that. Again, I'm a neurotic catastrophist. I'm sure you all saw the obscene scene that played itself out in the Oval Office yesterday. We are not, I mean, I was very moved by, Liubov saying, like, but we're contributing, our contributions are not being appreciated, we're of economic use. This is not an administration that is working in the best interest of America, or that cares about the best interest of America. Musk and Trump are going around, like Putin is going around, they're going around destroying their own country. And so appealing to their rational interest, in acting in the best interest of their own country, I don't think there's any use in that, because they don't care. I mean, and they worse than don't care. You're dealing with moral nihilists. You're like, Putin's running around. I mean, is Putin acting in the best interest of Russia? He is burning through his country's resources. He is bleeding through his population. My philosopher friend Volodya Yermolenko likes to call this a negative sum game. You just destroy everything. You burn a city to the ground, and then you declare victory on its ashes. Trump is very similar. So these appeals to, well, let me talk to you about why it would really be in your interest. They have just in the period of 5 weeks, destroyed American interest at home, abroad. I think there needs to be some reckoning with what we're dealing with, which is a completely unhinged, regime run by psychopaths. I know that doesn't sound very cheerful, and I'm afraid I don't have a solution to it. I mean, the one thing I kept telling the Ukrainians is, do not trust us. Do not count on us. Do not think that, like, well, in the end, he may seem like a little rough, but, like, surely, no, we cannot be trusted at all. Which is not to say that there aren't individual people in Washington who are individually good people trying to do the right thing, but these people have been deprived of power in the current circumstance and in the current layout of our government. There are, like, our senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut. I think he's a very good guy. I think he's a voice of moral sanity. But the way our system is constructed, and the way in which the Republicans have control of both houses and the Supreme Court and the executive branch has left us in a tremendously vulnerable position. The Europeans have to step up. I see that as the only hope for Ukraine. Okay, I'll just say one more thing. I'm sorry to sound so Cassandra-like. I'm still under the, I didn't think I could be shocked anymore, but yesterday's meeting at the Oval Office shocked me. It's like stuk snizu an nizen yet. Like, you think it can't get any, like, you think that there's just no bottom, like, to what these people will do. And I did a live television interview afterwards for a Washington journalist and a Fox News affiliate. And I knew I was talking to the right, I knew who I was speaking to, but I thought, I can deal with a little bit of bullying. Like, I'm still going to say what I want to say. And I did the interview, and the guy was, clearly a Trumpist, but I still felt like I said what I wanted to say. And we did it live, and it was on the recording for about 2 hours, and then it was cut out and censored. And the recording says full recording, but it's not the full recording, because between 9 and 10 p.m., they cut out the interview, where I explained exactly, like, what I thought about that meeting between Zelensky and Trump in the Oval Office. These are the free speech warriors. of course. So again, I think like any vestiges of the fact that in the end, in this administration, there's some fundamentally American value of freedom, of innovation, of strengthening our country through science. No, I think these people are moral nihilists and psychopaths, and that has to be looked at with eyes wide open. Okay, sorry for the pessimistic contribution.
Marcy, may I say a few words in relation to what you've said? First of all, I fully agree with you regarding the lack of morality, and we cannot hope for the good. Second, I have been, even though I've been here for 30 years, but I have been quite connected to Russia and Russian academic life over, at least before the full-scale invasion. And what is happening here is something that happened in Russia, where still there were quite a lot of good people who tried to oppose. They were physically killed, as you know, many of them, and so on and so forth. And this similarity is scary. But at the same time, I can tell you one thing. One thing we shouldn't be doing is just to kind of yield back. We have to resist. And that is an example. I think resistance in Russia was not sufficient to, was not sufficient to stop what was coming there. But I believe we have to appeal to American people and essentially resist in each way possible, not thinking about comfort of our academic positions. The comfort is transient, as you know. And I'll give you an example. In Israel, the government of Netanyahu tried to essentially subdue the court to the government, essentially destroying the separation of powers. And when that happened, and it was before October 7th, 100,000 people every day were protesting. Israel is a small country, 10 million people, 100,000 people protesting translates into millions in the United States. At this point, what I observe with surprise and disappointment, we see carnage at the American departments, government institutions, all the way from science, medicine, to the military and intelligence. And we are just kind of silent. I sincerely hope that American people will revolt. And we also need to find common grounds. One thing which was happening in Russia, it was division. And Putin's administration has been very successful in dividing and conquering people. Everybody was fighting with everyone. We have to come up with middle grounds, finding common grounds with our potential opponents, including Trumpists. They are not all the same. And listen to each other and really try to focus on what unites us rather than what divides us. And that's the only way to survive. And I think we have no other place to go. As a Soviet Russian, I cannot go back to, like Luba, to the graves of my parents. But there is nowhere to go from here, and there is nowhere to go for you and other Americans. It's our last stand, essentially.
Tatiana Gabriichuk.
I know that everyone here on this roundtable is doing everything they can to change the course of the current administration, or to impress on the current administration the dangers of the course that it has taken. And I want to share here a curious detail that I have just became aware a moment ago. I mentioned my posts on Facebook about my approaching the Massachusetts, my congressional district representatives in the U.S. Congress, and also I wrote to Senator Warren, and I went to Facebook right now to check if they are still up, my posts, which I have put there in the middle of February, and they are gone. So we are facing censorship even on this level, and I have never received any information from Facebook, even of the fact that they will be taken down. So right now, I just posted my letter to Senator Warren again. And in those letters, which preceded all the dramatic developments of the last week or so, I have outlined my strategy that I would like my representatives to consider and to hopefully adopt. I think that one of the mistakes that the Congress is making right now, is the reactive approach. It has to change to proactive approach on everything that is being pushed by this administration in form of executive orders or reckless and irresponsible behavior, and we have to get the Congress to hold the president and the current administration responsible for their absolutely reckless and irresponsible behavior. One of such ways, and you can see it on my Facebook, would be to remind of the promises that President Trump made before his inauguration. And there can be many points that we can bring up, but I only brought up 3 of them. On the day 1 of his presidency, he promised unconditionally to decrease the eggs price and other groceries. 2, to stop the war in Ukraine. 3, stop the Gaza conflict and return all hostages. And today, the egg prices continue to rise. The war in Ukraine continues to rage. The Gaza conflict is unresolved, and the hostages remain in the hands of terrorists. So I think that the minimum, the least we could do is force our representatives in the Congress to remind the administration of these promises and to put this up on their, like every congressman, every senator should have this on their website, and bring at least these 3 points up. Now, as to what else we can do, is we should really very aggressively, and I'm not afraid of that word, we should contact our representatives in the Congress and make them understand what a absolutely remarkable danger the policies of this administration pose, not only to democracy in the United States, but to democracy, the cause of democracy everywhere. And I will also follow up later with Dmitri Glinski, and whoever else wants to be in touch with me, please do not hesitate to do so. And let me say in closing that I'm really happy to see old friends and to make new friends on this platform. Hello to you, and thank you for being part of it, and especially encouraged and moved that Marcy Shore should join this discussion. And I very much hope that we will continue to interact and to collaborate on this in this very dramatic situation today.
Let's ask my question. And it was widely discussed among the Fulbrighters, and not only the Fulbrighters. President Trump, both during his campaign and after his election, has repeatedly brought up the issues of American education. including the desire to simplify the legalization for foreigners with strong American educational background. So the question is, do you think these statements can be trusted?
I am completely unable to answer your question because, like most mortals, I am completely unable to understand Mr. Trump or to anticipate what he will do next. I'm sorry I can't answer the question. I simply don't know. But let me make the point that there is one prominent person in Washington who is sympathetic to at least some visas, and that's Elon Musk, who obviously is a beneficiary of such a visa, was. He spoke quite forcefully about preserving that particular kind of visa back in December. And if we could, I've suggested this to Denis, that we should utilize the Russian contacts that we might have in Silicon Valley and their counterparts in Austin and elsewhere to get to Mr. Musk as they can by virtue of their business backgrounds, their information technology backgrounds, and try to widen his interest in this. He's a pretty shrewd guy. I don't like him any more than I like Trump, and I don't like him either. But he, I think he can be made to understand why this is important to the United States economy and to us strategically around the world, putting aside the humanitarian issue, which ought to be paramount. But just as a practical measure, we should be doing this for strategic reasons and for reasons that benefit our economy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. My name is Andrea Lanu, and I teach Slavic Studies at Connecticut College. It's a small college. We have students from Ukraine, Russia, Uzbekistan, Georgia, Belarus, all of the countries you represent. And I'm here. Thank you for allowing me to come to your meeting. I was on a Zoom call yesterday with one of our alumni, who graduated from Connecticut College 3.5 years ago, who worked for an immigration lawyer. That was her first job. And I have to say, having heard her comments, it seems to me that the problems, first of all, my heart goes out to each and every one of you. I'm glad that this group exists for moral support, but it seems that more material support is needed. I realize these are systemic issues, they are geopolitical issues, they're global crisis issues, but it seems that immigration lawyers could be of great assistance right now. A good immigration lawyer, I think, is very important for every person who is experiencing their own situation. It seems that your institutions, our institutions, your deans, right, may know of some resources. I realize no one, right, I couldn't afford an immigration lawyer right now, but maybe a way for this group to move forward for collective support is to help crowdsource funding and resources to help people get legal support that they need when they need it immediately. It's just my thought as I'm listening for the past 2 hours to your stories is that while structural solutions or political solutions are sought, there's immediate individual problems that need to be solved right now. So that's my feedback. And thank you so much for sharing your stories and allowing me to be here with you today.
Hello, everyone. It was a very important meeting. And I'm grateful to the organizers. I wish to listen more personal stories. And I think the crucial role of ERA to distribute this information, to let know people about the destiny of Russians, Belarusians, Ukrainians in these dark times, and the role of our organization in helping them. So I do my best to distribute this information through my channels like Facebook, Telegram channel, whatever I could do for that. But the role of American-Russian Association, just to underline it again, is very important because we give access to the public. We have to distribute this information to let people know.
That was Igor Kokarev, vice chair of our board, originally from Ukraine, scholar, writer, and organizer of our Ukrainian-Russian anti-war rallies in Los Angeles since 2014.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And I'm from Myanmar, so I'm not from like Ukraine, Russia, but I can really like empathize the situations that we're going on. And I'm also Fulbrighter. And so as you all spoke about like Fulbright, and I'm also like experiencing like in terms of like a stipend all this hardship because our country it's also like going through civil war for too long, and like on daily basis like there's fighting every day, and like I'm like in my last semester now, and I'm almost finished like my school, so I'm also like thinking uh whether I should apply for asylum or like TPS. But going back home, it's not a good option as there's like a conscription law in Myanmar, not fighting against any other country, but fighting against their own people. So it's really, really challenging. And then like all these like different ethnic people are fighting against their like government military, which is like a dictatorship, like called like Man Online. And so like most of young people are like fleeing from Myanmar. And like for me, like I'm as Fulbrighter, and this is like the situations where I'm stuck right now. And so like yeah, this are the story from me. And for Myanmar, there is also like a one more scholarship called like Lincoln Scholarship, particularly for Myanmar. From like it comes through like USAID, and now it all canceled, and over 400 students like they have to stop like studying. And just like a few hours ago I talked to one of my friend like who is studying in Los Angeles, and he's talking about like he wants to leave this school. He just like one semester away to finish his degree here. He's also Fulbrighter. So like we all are like struggling, like even like students from Myanmar, like other countries. I think we're all in the same boat. Yeah, these are the situations that we are into.
The situation is really just awful. But I would encourage activism. There was the interview or the article in the Washington Post that started a chain reaction that led to some efforts to resolve these unfortunate bureaucratic dilemmas. So my advice would be for the time being is to find creative ways to keep bringing these cases before the public. Offer yourselves as candidates to be interviewed. Publicity stunts, if they're respectable, get attention. There needs to be some creativity here to keep this issue constantly in front of the public and especially members of Congress. It's not a magic solution, and under the present circumstances, it might have no effect at all, but one must keep trying. Keep trying. Don't give up.
I want, of course, to thank everyone for participating in the roundtable, and I hope that everyone enjoyed it. And I believe we raised some very important issues and managed to build a meaningful discussion. We are seeking support from American society in our situation, and I believe that is justified, because when it comes to Fulbrighters, they are not just individuals who came to the United States to study. They are people whom America selected, not only for their intellect and talents, but also for their alignment with certain values and their leadership qualities. We would have liked to use our talents in our native countries, I think. But due to political persecution in Belarus and Russia, the level of isolation of scientific community increases, and Ukraine. I sincerely hope that the war ends soon as possible, but I also understand that rebuilding of Ukraine and restoring normal life there will require enormous resources and many years. So now we are unable to go back to our native countries and help them from inside. And probably that's why we're asking for support in our desire at least to contribute here in the United States, since for different reasons we found ourselves on American soils and can't go back. So thank you all one more time.
I want to thank Denis, of course, and his entire team with putting together this wonderful and very substantial panel and conversation on a new topic for us that I think we will continue discussing because it's hugely important. And I thank very much our American speakers who were here today, Marcy, Andrea, and of course, Senator Humphrey, because this is so important that the students that spoke here have your solidarity and support. A few points that I want to raise here quickly based on what I heard. First of all, can we expect a positive change for our international students under this administration? Well, my gut sense is on the side of those who doubt this. Speaking of Elon Musk, honestly, this has been the first administration in history that has been openly promoting certain neo-Nazi messages and narratives, and Elon Musk has been the most visible in this regard with this Sieg Heil and many years of anti-Semitic and other statements on X, and I doubt this is quite compatible with intellectual or political rationality. But I agree that we need to find ways, those of us who are American citizens, and those who are here, have been here for a long time, have to find ways to resist. The American way to resist is through courts. Our communities, as Alexander Kabanov stated, are small, and it's hard to achieve anything without working together with others, which is part of what our organization has been trying to do over the years. With bigger, more resourceful immigrant communities. And I think we need to work with them and see in what ways our community organizations can participate in the legal challenges to certain things. Speaking of asylum, we work a lot with immigration lawyers, and we're happy to open whatever network we have and try to help by bringing people who need that with our immigration legal network, which of course some of you also have on your own. Asylum is a lengthy process, and the wait once you apply for asylum can be longer than the term of this administration. Speaking of economic situation that was described here very vividly, I think the answer is some mutual aid within our communities. I have to say in this regard, and that's my very personal opinion again, that Belarusian and Ukrainian communities are in a little bit better position in terms of mutual aid, solidarity, and networks of support than the Russian community, where we have lots of oligarchs and quasi-oligarchs, and a lot of internal, I would say, I wouldn't shy from this term, class divide, that unfortunately creates more barriers that face the needier part of the community, and as well as community organizations. But I think we should advocate for more fair solutions and support, using material support for people who are in the situations that Tatiana and others described. And finally, of course, let us all collaborate. I very much hope that we do other things together with Liberty Forward and with this wonderful team, practical things and discussions. Everyone else is very much welcome to join us at our future roundtables. I thank you all for being here, and I wish you a very restful evening, and let us all be in touch.